Hey everybody, I'm Tim, and today it's time for Connecticut Smokedown, and you're watching Cigars Daily. In this video, we're going to take these two cigars head to head to see which one has more to offer, which one has better value. But I got to tell you up front, what you'll get here is my opinion of these two sticks. And so if you've had the Romeo Y Julieta Reserva Real or the H. Upmann Grupo de Maestros Connecticut, please drop a comment down below with what you think of them, because we'll all learn better when we learn together. And I want to invite you to get even more out of all our videos now when you watch them on cigarsdailyplus.com. When I go to a coffee shop, I notice like a couple of different types of people. Like on one far end of the spectrum is the guy who's like, I need a double shot Americano, and while you're at it, put some crack in that thing. And on the other end of the spectrum are people more like me. When I go to a coffee shop, I order pretty much the same thing every time. A cup of coffee with cream in it. That's all I want. It's simple, and I like that because I'm simple. And then there are people who get like the fra-fra foo-foo Philly frattes and they want to put sugar and whipped cream on top, and those people are in a weird class all their own. But even within the cigar world, this spectrum exists. Some guys and gals really want full-bodied, dark, tear your teeth out and shove them into your nose holes. And then on the other side of it, you want like people who want, tear your nose holes. And then on the other side of it, you've got people more like me who want something milder, creamy, smooth, but with lots and lots of flavor. And that's really why we're here today. We're going to be looking at two blends from two classic cigar makers, H. Upmann and Romeo Y Julieta, to see which one can truly offer more flavor in that creamy Connecticut world. So I want to take you guys into this, but first, let's learn a little more about our contenders. And our first blend competing today is one that's already a classic in the cigar world, and that's the Romeo Y Julieta Reserva Real. Now, this bad boy is already a classic in the cigar world. It's been out for a while, but it uses a three-country blend with an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper, a Nicaraguan binder leaf underneath, and on the inside, Nicaraguan and Dominican fillers. Now, this thing already has a lot of popularity with cigar smokers, but my question is for this, with a classic blend, can it really keep up with a lot of the newer stuff that's coming out like its contender today? And that second blend today is the H. Upmann Grupo de Maestros Connecticut. And this thing has not been on the market as long. It's really only been around for the last few years. But just like the Romeo Y Julieta, it's a three-country blend with a little tweak here and there. First of all, it uses an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper on the outside, just like the Romeo Y Julieta did. However, the binder leaf underneath isn't from Nicaragua. This one's from the Dominican Republic, and then fillers on the inside also from the Dominican Republic and Nicaragua. Now, this thing just having come out very recently gives it a different flavor profile, and hopefully it's got what it takes to keep up, but it also has a promising side because so much of what's getting blended today has got to be put out with incredible attention to detail in the flavor profile. So this thing, even though it's not like classic blend yet, hopes to stand up to the Romeo Y Julieta. And so with no further ado, let's jump right in. In the first round, we'll look at construction, or at least the visible construction. What can you see about a cigar? Because we know that people judge a book by its cover, and you can learn a thing or two about a stick just by looking at it. In this round, we're going to look at presentation as it goes with the wrapper leaf, how it looks, with the cap on top, and with the cigar ring and what it tells us about the stick. And when it comes to these two cigars, it's a pretty apparent difference to me. Even though the blends are very similar and they both use that Ecuadorian Connecticut Shade wrapper, it's actually the Romeo Y Julieta that gives a cleaner overall presentation. When I look at wrappers like these, I'm always looking for bruising and blemishes, which are very easy to accomplish when you're working with Connecticut Shade. These wrapper leaves are so thin, they're incredibly brittle. It amazes me that people make cigars with these. But that Romeo Y Julieta is just a cleaner wrapper presentation, while there's some slight bruising and like miscoloration on the H. Upmann. So for the point for wrapper, that goes to the Romeo. And then we gotta look at the cap. Now, both of these cigars come with expert construction and a triple cap. They look great, but for me, there's one distinction here. That H. Upmann shows off a very dark colored cap, and I don't know what kind of leaf that is, if it's a broadleaf or if it's a Mexican San Andreas in there. I would think it would be a type of leaf that's contained somewhere inside this blend. But this thing just takes that cap one extra step further, so they both have the triple cap, but for me, the point goes to the H. Upmann. And then there's that final point for for the band. Now, these two cigars have got two very good looking bands that both play on like a different side of the cigar industry. Romeo Y Julieta's band is much more of a heritage band that seems to want to come with a lot of the legacy that goes into the cigar world. It's more of what I would call a traditional band, while at the same time the H. Upmann plays off the original H. Upmann design, but with coloration on this they've updated it a little bit and causes it to pop off the shelf a little bit more. Red is a very fetching color, but for me the yellow band gets me every time. It just complements the shade of the Connecticut Shade wrapper on the outside, so the point here goes to the H. Upmann. And when it comes to the overall presentation, the H. Upmann takes it out. Even though this cigar's got a better looking wrap relief, I see more about this that at this point could very easily all just be flash. We won't know more until we actually break into these things. So let's go ahead and jump to round two. We're gonna look at construction. And now in round two, we'll talk about construction, an absolutely critical part of enjoying any cigar, because you can think about construction similar to the wheels on your car. If you don't have good ones, you're not going to go very far. And certainly the same is true here. It's critical to have a nice burn, draw, and ash with a cigar to get an overall good experience. And so we'll start talking about that ash because that's the most apparent. The Grupo de Maestros holds on to a nearly 2-inch ash, and that's after the Romeo Y Julieta just dropped its ash right on my table right here. And so certainly the Grupo de Maestros wins out for ash even now, still holding on really strong. And then it comes down to the burn. While the Grupo de Maestros has earned the point for an ash, the burn also won by the Grupo de Maestros. The burn all the way through the first third of the Romeo Y Julieta was just sort of at a slant. It was just off, and I didn't touch it up. I gave it the chance to fix itself, and it did, which is actually a really impressive point about construction. And even though the point is going to the H. Upmann here, I gotta say, this thing has given me something to think about. And then there's the draw, and this is the one where I really saw a big separation between the two. Certainly with the Romeo Y Julieta, the draw was pretty much dead on accurate, very perfect, just the right amount of resistance, while the H. Upmann over here, the draw was tighter, like noticeably tighter. I would have called the draw snug. And it's not the kind of thing that I enjoy. I know it is the kind of thing for some cigar smokers, it's like, woohoo, I gotta draw way harder. I don't really understand that. But for me, just the perfect amount of resistance came through the Romeo Y Julieta, so it wins that point for draw. But overall, in the arena of construction, the H. Upmann sort of held up its end of construction better than the Romeo Y Julieta did, so it wins the point here too. And now it's time to jump into the last round, the big one, and what really matters, and that is flavor. And both of these cigars did well in the first two rounds, even though the H. Upmann was the winner for those two rounds. So if it was best 2 out of 3, the H. Upmann would already have it. But both of these cigars are passable for their presentation and construction, so it really comes down to flavor for me, because both of them would give you a good cigar experience really any day of the week. And I was surprised at how different the two flavors are in these cigars, especially when the blend is pretty similar at the very least. So we're going to take a look at consistency. That's how much of the flavor you get right at light up versus having to wait for it to jump in. And then we'll look at complexity of the overall flavor profile, and then sweetness from the wrapper. And I'll start with wrapper sweetness because that was the thing most apparent to me. The Romeo Y Julieta earns the point for that easily and hands down. This thing has really nice wrapper sweetness that was present right from light up, while the H. Upmann has a little bit more spice to it, and that spice seems to be competing for space from wrapper sweetness overall. So if you like spicier cigars, this would probably be the one to point you to. But I'm a big guy that appreciates that sweetness from the wrapper, and this cigar gave me that in spades. And then there's consistency. How much of the flavor do you get right at light up versus having to wait? And both of these cigars did very, very well. But truly, it took a little bit more time for the H. Upmann to come to life with consistency. That spiciness in the flavor was there up front, and I think it sort of cast a shadow on other flavors that became stronger and more noticeable later on in the smoke. And for that reason, Romeo Y Julieta wins the point again. And then you've got complexity. And for me, that was a challenging toss-up because the cigar flavor profiles between these two are very similar. They're both Connecticut Shades have wrapper leaves from Ecuador. Their blends contain leaves from Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic, but different proportions and probably altogether different leaves. And so when it came to complexity, a couple of things that I looked at. First of all, with the Romeo Y Julieta, it was a very like cedar and almond centric flavor with sort of a floral kicker in there. There was a floral note that wasn't quite balanced out with everything else, and then a nice sweetness from the wrapper. What I got in the H. Upmann was very different. This thing had some spice, like I mentioned, and that was there immediately from light up. As I got into the first third, I also got that sort of cedar and almonds base to the flavor. This one also has a very strong and very balanced graham cracker note in it. And for me, this thing carried just a better overall flavor, even though I like the creaminess and the smoothness of the Romeo Y Julieta. What I really appreciated here was a more dynamic flavor. Like everything about the Romeo Y Julieta was mild and smooth and calm and great. But the H. Upmann was a little more dynamic. It had mild to medium flavor. It had a nice profile, but that sweetness from the wrapper resting underneath that nice spiciness on the tongue just gave it more dimensions of flavor overall for me. And for that reason, the H. Upmann wins it. And in the end, when it comes down to all three rounds, the H. Upmann wins on presentation and construction, and the Romeo Y Julieta got the points it needed for that flavor category. But for me, overall, I would say that this is the great and winning cigar over the whole thing. And I would truly pick this H. Upmann now over the Romeo Y Julieta Reserve Real. But the big thing that matters here and what we really care about is what you guys think about these cigars. So if you've had either one, like I said, drop a comment down below with what you think about it. And I want to invite you to get even more out of all of our videos when you watch them now on cigarsdailyplus.com. Thank you all so much for watching. This is Tim signing off for Cigars Daily, and I will see you in the comments.